The More Perfect Union is brought to you by HelloFresh. Visit HelloFresh.com and use promo code MOREPERFECT30 to get $30 off your first order. Welcome to The More Perfect Union, a podcast about the joy we get from American politics, or as we like to call it, real debate without the hate. Hello, I'm Kevin Kelton. I'm a Democrat and a political activist living in Los Angeles, California.
I'm DJ McGuire, an economics instructor and a conservative Democrat. Stop laughing, we exist. From Suffolk, Virginia.
I'm Rebecca Kushmiter, a freelance writer. We also exist. And liberal Democrat from Kensington, Maryland.
I'm Cliff Dunn, a Republican Party unit chair from Newport News, Virginia.
And I'm Greg Matuzak, a liberal Democrat. I wish there were more of us. And veteran of many political campaigns from Cincinnati, Ohio.
You are going to hurt Greg's feelings, Cliff.
I know.
Be nice.
And The More Perfect Union can be found on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Facebook, and at our website, moreperfectunionpodcast.com, where you can also find host bios and commentary. DJ put up a commentary this week about the debt ceiling, I believe. Is that right, DJ?
That is correct.
And we'll get to that subject in a couple of moments. But first, we want to address the story that everyone in the country is talking about. Guys, what do you think about all the hurricanes this week? From Harvey to Irma to Katia to Jose to 8.2 earthquakes in Mexico.
I gotta say, the Harvey Irma 1-2 punch, it's like
Cats and dogs living together.
But Harvey and Irma sound like your grandparents. They should not be nearly as destructive. Well, maybe, actually, depending on your grandparents.
I was going to say, yeah.
Never mind. Point retracted.
Now, Cliff, you were actually down in Florida this weekend, right?
Yes, so I flew down on Friday to help some of my friends prepare for the hurricane in the Orlando area. And I want to give a shout out to Delta Airlines they capped the fares so that it was actually affordable to do this. They added at least 10,000 extra seats of capacity into Florida over the course of 3 days, including putting several 747s on the Detroit to Orlando run. So they really have been very responsible corporate citizens. I know we've heard a lot about the airlines lately, and they did their best with this.
That's great.
That's really great to hear. I love
that is nice
when there's people and corporate entities stepping up and doing the right thing. That's really
and speaking
a great thing.
Speaking of people stepping up to do the right thing, Greg, didn't Rush Limbaugh step up and do something this week?
Last week it was Joel Osteen who got shamed by a hurricane, and this week it was Rush Limbaugh. And I hate to bring up Rush because I don't think he speaks for the right anymore. There was a point where he really did. But a couple days ago, he actually told people that this hurricane was a hoax, and it was just the left climate control pushing, and the media saying this is just a hoax for climate control. No one leave. It's not going to be that bad. Well, today he got the heck out of Dodge because his hometown, and I could see him. And my favorite part of the story is Al Roker, America's weatherman, took him to task and said, "You're out of your mind, Rush Limbaugh." And when Al Roker tells you that you're out of your mind,
you don't want to be scolded by Al Roker.
No.
I'm sure the residents of those Caribbean islands that got totally destroyed think this is totally fake news, Rush. Give me a break.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Where does Rush live? Where's his home?
Is he in Palm Beach?
Lives in the Keys.
Oh,
yeah,
the Keys.
He lives in the Keys.
He lives in the Keys.
Now, it should be noted, however, that I actually read the transcript of what Rush actually said. He did not say the hurricane itself was a hoax. He did say it was being overhyped, and I think that was incorrect. It was not overhyped. It was a very, very big storm. But he did not actually say the hurricane itself was a hoax. He did say it was overhyped, and that was a mistake.
My concern for the hurricane is...
Why are you concerned for a hurricane? Wait, why are you concerned for a hurricane?
Because I have to take the opposite side. I have to play devil's advocate. Everybody who is concerned for the people.
You're such a contrarian. Oh my gosh.
This is why I can't keep a relationship going. I have to argue the opposite side of everything. But my concern about the hurricane and the people who are going to be affected is that on Wednesday and Thursday, they were telling people that the odds of it going up the western side of Florida were pretty slim, if not had almost dropped to zero. and they were telling people on the eastern side, get out of Dodge, go someplace else. And a lot of those people went to the western side of the state, and I'm afraid a lot of them are going to be in much worse trouble than they would have been if they'd stayed at home. I don't know that to be the case, but I'm really concerned about that. My heart goes out to those people, as it goes out to anyone who's going to be affected by this. By the way, Rebecca, what can we do more than just saying our heart goes out? What can we do to really make a difference?
Well, obviously there are always emergency responders on the ground helping out. The big one is always the Red Cross. You can call them at 1-800-RED-CROSS and make a donation to help their efforts in the immediate aftermath. Some folks are less than comfortable with the Red Cross for various reasons. I have heard nothing but good about the efforts of a charity called Team Rubicon. They are a veterans group. Veterans do the volunteering, and they come and do wonderful things in helping with disaster relief. And from what I understand from a friend who experienced Sandy, Team Rubicon will be there for months afterwards helping with the rebuilding as well. But Red Cross is very good in the immediate aftermath. So those are two great organizations that we can all support in the days to come.
Great. So again, our thoughts are with everybody that's going to be affected by all of the storms, not just Irma. We're with you as you listen to us. But there has been some political news this week other than weather. Specifically, the Trump administration came forward with their latest incarnation of their policy about DACA. Cliff, what did you think about how the Trump administration handled it?
This is about as well as you could have handled it. The underlying program was probably unconstitutional, and if I recall correctly, Texas was getting ready to sue within the week if Trump didn't do something about it. He didn't kill it immediately, which he could have. He could have just said, boop, it's dead as of today. He didn't do that. He gave Congress 6 months to act, and I think Congress does have some sort of will to act. And I'm hoping that we get a better replacement because, okay, I'm going to take a contrary position to a lot of my fellow Trump supporters. I'm going to say you can't turn to somebody who was brought here when they were 2 or 3 years old, they've integrated to this country, and say, well, the first thing you did when you came to this country is you broke the law. No, I'm sorry. A 2 or 3 year old doesn't break the law. They're not morally responsible for being here. You can't hold them responsible, especially when, in some cases, they don't speak the language of their home country, etc. Now, I'm hoping that the
result... Cliff, can I just jump in and ask you? You would probably say that about 6 and 10 and 12-year-olds too, wouldn't you?
I would agree it's a sliding scale. I think that we should probably have a points-based system for this sort of thing. I don't think it should be extended indefinitely because you do eventually create a moral hazard to, well, if I bring them in now, they'll have to take them and they won't be able to throw me out for the parents. You don't want that incentive, and I'm painfully aware of that, but we need something that is actually legislatively worked out rather than clutched together with an executive order. And finally, these people were still in limbo. They were on a continually renewing permit. This wasn't a permanent fix. It was not intended as that. And so hopefully whatever program comes out will provide them with a permanent fix, even if it's permanent resident status.
Well, I talked to somebody smarter than I am about this today, a friend of mine who is actually an immigration attorney and has a lot of insight into this. And one of the things my friend commented, which is very interesting, is that Trump, unlike most presidents, just dumped a bucket load of executive power out into the grass like it was a piss pot full of something nasty. And that's really unusual. You don't see presidents throw away their authority. He didn't write a new order. He didn't hang on to the Justice Department's prerogative to make decisions. And there is actually black letter law that really gives an executive of the United States a lot of power to make determinations about who can immigrate and who can't. And he ceded that. He ceded it to Congress by telling them it's now their job to do it. But he did it in this very unusual way where he didn't have draft legislation in mind. He just, this is very apprentice. Like, here's your project. Go do it. I'm going to be in the back room grabbing a pussy or something. I don't know what the hell he does when he's not on TV. And so that was highly unusual.
Yes, well, and for good or ill, if Congress screws it up, he can't fire them.
He cannot fire them. It's true. I don't know if he knows that, though. I think he thinks he can get them all fired by going out and campaigning for their primary opponents. He's certainly trying to do it to Jeff Flake.
He knows he can't fire them. He thinks the Department of Justice can fire them.
The Justice Department can maybe fire him. Bob Mueller works over there.
I'm going to do something that I do every now and then, and it drives Greg crazy. I'm going to play devil's advocate and...
Oh my gosh, this drives me crazy.
And speak on behalf of the Trump administration. You know, your point is well taken, Rebecca, that the Trump administration did not come forth with legislation. But then again, the Obama administration did not come forth with legislation on this particular issue, nor did they come forth with legislation on the ACA. They left that to Congress. I think a lot of presidents leave it to Congress to write legislation. And I sometimes wonder whether they're making a mistake when they offer legislative ideas to Congress, other than broad parameters.
It has to do with setting precedent that can be reviewed by the judicial branch. Executive orders, because they don't hold the force of law, I believe are more collapsible, if I understood what my friend who is smarter than I am and is also actually a lawyer and not just a blowhard said.
That is correct.
I was going to say I am a blowhard, not a lawyer, and I actually posted on this also at moreperfectunionpodcast.com. I think we're missing one of the main points here, which is that for all Trump's discussion about whether or not this is constitutional, whether or not this is proper executive authority, et cetera, whenever he uses that argument, he's being dishonest. And he's being dishonest because at the same time, he was pretending to say it's Congress's issue to fix, it's not a power I should have, et cetera. He's also trotting out Sarah Huckabee Sanders and saying, well, you know, there are lots of poor people in America who might have these jobs if not for these dreamers. So I don't think he actually wants Congress to act on this. I think he wants these people deported because his nativist base wants these people deported. I think he's talking out of both sides of his mouth, and too many people are falling for it.
That's another thing I asked my friend, is what the effect of immigration, particularly illegal immigration, has on the economy as a whole. And he said that the greatest impact is on people without high school degrees and other immigrants. That's where the economic damage could be done. So it doesn't hurt the middle class. It doesn't hurt the rich, certainly.
Well, and what's interesting about the people who are affected by this program is that, if I recall right, they all have to have graduated high school, and I forget whether I think they have to have either graduated from college or be in college, or they have to have gone into the military. I think, though, it's one of those are basically the two paths, so that most of these people aren't going to have a direct impact on those people.
Correct.
You know, what really chafes me about this is the rollout, and how Sarah Huckabee Sanders came out and said, this is really the most humane. And through the whole press conference, I don't know if y'all watched it, but I sure did. And they kept saying, how can you do this to children? And they were like, we are following laws and we're the good guys here. And there was a whole room of stunned reporters who said, this is terrible. You're monsters. And she said, no, this is by giving them 6 months, knowing that Congress will not do anything, because Congress traditionally has not done, well, anything ever.
Well, I mean, Sarah Huckabee Sanders' brother murdered dogs and other animals, so maybe her definition of monster is a little more severe than ours.
Yeah, that's true. They've got it's loosey-goosey.
Let me ask this. Isn't the Trump administration's, well, they've got about 4 positions on this, but isn't one of them essentially the same as what Mitt Romney was trying to sell in 2012, which is self-deportation? Aren't they saying to these people, listen, you can be American citizens, just go back to the country that you never came from, or you came from when you were 2 or 4 or 6 years old. Go back there, do some paperwork, because we know how efficient government paperwork is, and then wait, and we'll get back to you. Trust us, we'll get back to you, and we'll invite you back in.
No, that has nothing to do with what Romney was attempting to.
Wasn't Romney talking about clamping down on people who employ?
No, self-deportation.
No.
But self-deportation
he
was saying that if we clamp down on the employment, if the employers aren't offering the jobs, then folks will self-deport because there's no point in being here.
Okay, but it's still self-deportation.
Which was also suggested to me by the Mexican consular general in the 90s when I happened to meet him at dinner once. So Mitt Romney wasn't wrong.
It also says something about how completely unaware and ignorant Mitt Romney was about immigration restrictionist politics, and that the restrictionists don't use the term self-deport, they use the term attrition to describe this policy. And it doesn't change the fact that the policy itself has issues. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that, once again, Mitt Romney was essentially thinking one thing and saying another, which was a hallmark of his campaign.
Yeah, well, he was also severely conservative.
He was severely
Terminally,
something.
Terminally, yeah.
Okay, so DACA. So we all agree that Cliff thinks it was handled about as well as it can be, and everybody else thinks it was handled about as poorly as it can be. Okay.
And yet we all have different reasons.
Now, speaking of things that you could look at both ways, here's another one of my transitions. The debt ceiling was in some form or fashion resolved this week. Democrats are happy. Trump is apparently ecstatic with how things turned out. And GOP are grumpy bumpies. So why is this? What went down there, DJ, that the GOP didn't get what they wanted?
The Republicans wanted the debt ceiling issue to be, they wanted the can kicked down the road 18 months. They got 3 months. The Democrats wanted it kicked down the road 3 months because they think they'll have better leverage if this issue has to be resolved in December. Personally, I think they're nuts. As I said on my post on this subject on More Perfect Union podcast, I think this was a bad deal for Democrats. I think it's a bad deal for the country. I'm unusual within the Democratic Party in saying that, but mainly because I think what it really does is it does two things that worry me, and I'm sorry to bring two important points instead of one. First, it partially normalizes Trump, which we don't want to do. We've spent 8 months saying that the Trump administration is not okay. The Trump presidency is not okay. This is not okay. And suddenly he agrees to what we think we want on the debt ceiling and government funding, and the Trump administration is okay. Not good, not smart. Secondly, this gives the Democratic Party ownership over the next shutdown, which is the one thing they did not want. If both parties have ownership over a shutdown, the president's party wins the shutdown argument. They win it every single time. Ronald Reagan won the shutdown arguments with Democrats. Bill Clinton won the shutdown arguments with Republicans. Barack Obama, to a large extent, won shutdown arguments with Republicans politically. The Democrats were in a position where they had no power, and therefore they were in no position to have any role in the shutdown, and thus they could not be blamed for it. Now they can be blamed for it. All Trump has to do is say in December, I did my part, I made a deal with them, they negotiated in bad faith, it's their fault. And his supporters will believe him. Democrats hurt themselves with that deal.
Well, the part of the problem was Ryan never got to even counter offer because Ivanka walked in too soon.
Yeah, I'll disagree on one point on that. There is so much issues and fraction in the Republican Party that it's not just the Democrats versus the Republicans. It's the Republicans versus the Republicans versus the Republicans versus the Democrats in Congress.
Here's a question I still don't understand, and I've been reading articles trying to figure this out. I can't find this information. I understand why the GOP would want to kick it down the road past the 2018 election. But even if it comes up again in December, they can extend the debt ceiling for 12 months then. What is it they are trying to squeeze out of the opposition that they didn't get this time that they reasonably could get? Okay. I still don't understand.
Okay, Kevin, it's not about the opposition. And here Greg has something of a point. In regards to the debt ceiling, the Republicans just divide amongst each other and fall upon each other like wolves on this. Because there are some Republicans who are convinced that the debt ceiling should be used as leverage to get various policies advanced. And there are some Republicans who say, wait a minute, it is not a good idea to risk the full faith and credit of the United States on various policy issues. I've been on both sides of that argument when I was within the Republican Party. Obviously, I'm not in there anymore. But it's an issue Republicans don't really want to discuss. It's one that they don't really want to discuss because it airs their dirty laundry out for everyone to see. And that's why they wanted that's why.
But what policies were they talking about? The Freedom Caucus. What policy did they want to push?
As far as I understand, the Freedom Caucus, and Cliff, if there's stuff that I missed, let me know. The Freedom Caucus wants mandated spending cuts akin to the 2011 Budget Control Act. And I don't know what other policy issues they want. Cliff, what other policy issues is the Freedom Caucus asking for in regards to the debt ceiling?
I think they would also like to try and force an Obamacare repeal as well if they could. That's obviously, I don't think that's going to happen right now, but they would certainly go for that the next bite if they could.
I think, and also Freedom Caucus is still looking into Obama's birth certificate.
they're about to launch another investigation into Benghazi.
Yeah, exactly.
They've got a lot of homework from last semester that they never finished.
So was this a win for Trump? I mean, is he now going to start to partner with the Democrats? My sense is that this was an issue that Trump could play the bad cop, go to the other side, cut a deal with the Democrats. He didn't really care about the debt ceiling, which was going to be raised anyway. There was no hard issue that he was trying to accomplish at the same time as, raising the debt ceiling. So he was able to embarrass Mitch McConnell, weaken Paul Ryan, and show them, if you guys don't play ball with me, I'll go play ball with the other side. But here's the thing. I don't think he really intends to play ball with the Democrats on any other issues. I think this was just a high chin pitch on the inside corner to brush back the Republicans.
I think you're absolutely right, Kevin. And it says something about how unpopular Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan are, that the country has seemed to unite in this moment of grand schadenfreude at how badly Ryan and McConnell were treated. But schadenfreude cannot move a country forward. It just feels good for a little while.
And you know what else feels good? Having a nice hot home-cooked meal. Which brings us...
That's the best segue ever, Kevin.
Which brings us, we are so proud to be introducing the first sponsor that we've ever had on the More Perfect Union. It's HelloFresh. Everybody's heard of HelloFresh, and we are very glad to welcome them as our sponsor this week. I've never been a cook. There's a couple of meals that I learned to make when I was younger. They were what I call my bachelor meals that I would cook when I had a date and I was trying to impress a lady. But as a father of two kids, I really was scrounging in the kitchen all the time. And along came HelloFresh, and I tried it this week. And I got to tell you, it is what they say it is. They offer every week. They send you a box with, depending on how many meals you order, there are different plans. I got 3 meals, but each week they create new delicious recipes with easy step-by-step instructions. And they say it's designed to take around 30 minutes for everyone from novices to seasoned home cooks who just are short on time. But what I turned out, I mean, I took pictures. I'll show it to you guys sometime because, I'm one of those people that takes pictures of my food before I eat it.
On Instagram, Kevin. You need a whole Kevin's HelloFresh account.
I put them on Facebook.
I would like to see that.
I cannot cook a meal without taking a picture of it.
I saw the picture of the burger, and I think that was that zucchini?
Zucchini fries. I've had the biggest craving for zucchini fries since you posted those pictures. I love zucchini fries. I should order.
Do you know the worst part about that is my Instagram food thing would just be boxes that I just make for my kids from there's nothing fresh or nice about it. So,
what do you cook for them? I mean, are you a good cook?
So I pretend to be, and my kids say, "Oh, this is great. Which box are we cooking out of today?" So no, I am not a good cook. Do I cook? Yes. Here's macaroni and cheese. Here's some sort of pasta. Here's another carbohydrate. So no. So something like this would be great. So I'm looking forward to doing this, actually.
And here's the other thing that I really liked about it. They give you the exact amount you need of everything you need. A couple of weeks ago, my daughter comes to me. She found a recipe online that she wanted to try. We look at the ingredients. One of the ingredients was marjoram. Has anybody heard of this ingredient before?
Yes, I have a bottle of it in my spice cabinet.
Well, I do now too, because I had to go out and buy it for this one recipe. But here's the thing. $4.50 later, I will never use that again.
Or else you're going to be on HelloFresh looking at recipes that would be enhanced by a little marjoram. Send this box and I'm going to toss a little more in. Customize your HelloFresh.
I'd be happy to donate my bottle to the HelloFresh people because I have no more use for it.
I've never heard of this. But maybe I've done a crossword puzzle. It's called I've heard of marjoram.
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 It's an
marjoram.
herb.
It's actually going to be the name of the next hurricane.
Yeah.
Harvey, Irma, and marjoram.
So just to wrap up, HelloFresh delivers food to your doorstep in a recyclable insulated box for free. There's no delivery charge. The meals come out great. They are not hard to cook. They have 3 menu options, what they call their classic menu, the veggie menu, which is obvious, and then a family menu, which is kid-friendly or for, larger families. 13 new recipes to choose from every week. And they just introduced breakfast options. So you can even do this for breakfast.
Ooh, breakfast for dinner. It's like HelloFresh has read my daughter's mind. Breakfast for dinner is her favorite thing. I could order the breakfast boxes and serve them for dinner. This is genius. HelloFresh has thought of everything. If they could just send a coloring book in the box to keep my daughter busy while I cook.
That's actually brilliant.
I think really, call me, HelloFresh.
And it's less than $10 a meal. And by the way, I looked at their website. It's actually, right now, I think they've got a discount going. It's much less than that. And for $30 off your first week of HelloFresh, if you go to their website, HelloFresh.com, and enter promo code MOREPERFECT30, you get $30 off your first order. Now, what were the odds that that company was going to use the words more perfect as their promo code? I think it's unbelievable.
It's serendipity.
It's serendipity.
Serendipity.
So, but the promo code is MOREPERFECT30. You've got to add the number 30, and you'll get $30 off your first visit, off your first delivery. So
that's one word, right?
One
No
word,
spaces.
MOREPERFECT30, no spaces. Thank you for that. So please do that. Obviously, they will know that you came from the More Perfect Union, and they will be happy with us, and they may sponsor even more episodes. So again, HelloFresh, have fun cooking, have healthy meals, and then go back to debating with your family after dinner. So going back to what we do here, Betsy DeVos was in the news this week, and it wasn't for her cooking.
Oh.
Rebecca, what was she in the news for?
Back in 2011, Obama had written a letter giving guidance to colleges and universities on how they should handle sexual assault as a Title IX issue having to do with gender equality on campus. Betsy DeVos thinks that Barack Obama was wrong, plans to rescind all the guidance in his letter and do it her way. Frankly, I think they both suck. And sexual assault is not a matter for universities to be prosecuting. It's not an honor code violation. It's not a rule-breaking issue. It is a violent assault on another person's body, and it should be handled by the police. End of story.
I agree with Rebecca on this. I agree that it is not a matter for universities to handle, and I'm glad that the guidance was rescinded because this frequently forced somebody who might be facing a criminal charge to face a hearing at the university level where anything they said could and would be held against them if the DA got involved later, but would face a very low burden of proof and potentially be suspended or expelled on a spurious charge. So I'm glad the guidance is getting
right.
rolled back.
Sorry, that was the sound of a feminist's head exploding. Because every time we talk about sexual assault on campus, somebody, usually somebody with a Y chromosome, says something about false accusations, and I want to throw all of those out the window. Let's pretend that women know what they're talking about when their body has been violated by another person. Let's just make that a known fact, because it pisses the hell out of me when everybody says, yeah, but what if it isn't really sexual assault and the girl is just lying? That is rape apologist behavior, and I don't want to hear it.
Okay, well, here's the thing. Even if you go with the 1 in 4 group, the men working to prevent sexual assault, even if you go with them, even they would concede that around 8 to 10% of charges either are definitely end up being false, people getting back at each other, etc., or they don't meet a reasonable burden of proof. So, I at some point, the guy who has the finger pointed at them does have and does deserve rights under our legal system, and those rights should not be thrown out the window because he happens to be in college.
I agree with that part, but all these arguments keep coming back to the idea that girls are lying about being sexually assaulted, and I hate that presumption.
Okay, stop. Here is the first problem. The first problem is if it is a college involved rather than the law, it becomes the accuser versus the accused, the boy versus the girl. In every other criminal proceeding, it is state versus defendant. This is about the burden of proof the state should have. Colleges have been working their way around it because, one, they are not the state, and two, they're under very different pressures. This is why none of this should be adjudicated by colleges at all. If a sexual assault occurs on any other private property or any other institution in America, it is for the local authorities in police and prosecution to sort out. College campuses seem to be the only place in the country that either wish to exempt themselves or are being told they should exempt themselves, and they shouldn't. In all these cases, it should be a matter for the local police and for the local prosecution. There should be no college. There is no college jurisdiction. It should not exist. Period. End of paragraph. Last page in the book.
Exactly. For example, if a reality show host grabbed you by the pussy, it should not be the network's job to adjudicate the problem. It should be a case for the DA.
Excellent. I'm drinking to you on that, Rebecca.
Rebecca, the issue I have is I don't want to presume that either of them are lying. I want it to go in front of a competent authority who is then going to look at, okay, what are the facts that we have? What do we know? What is being alleged, etc., where they don't have an incentive to, convict, etc. I don't want to presume either side is telling the truth. I don't want to presume either side is lying.
The reality is we're in violent agreement here. That is literally
we're in agreement for different reasons.
This is what violent agreement actually means. You are seeing it live. Well, okay, people who aren't listening to it aren't live, obviously, because they're listening to it tape delay. This is what violent agreement is, folks. I'm going to go back to drinking now.
So real quick, one of the aspects was that schools were not allowed to pressure or make female assault victims sign a non-disclosure form. Okay? Which meant that if you were assaulted, you couldn't say anything to the authorities. Okay? Because in case, they could expel the student, but that was about it. They didn't want the reputation of the school getting out. Okay? They were going to handle it in. So the first thing that would happen to a student is like, here, sign this non-disclosure form if we were going to proceed. Okay? That is now a reality if Betsy DeVos has her way. And if you don't think schools are going to go back to that practice to protect their reputation.
As they say in the House of Commons, I refer you to the statement I made some moments ago. A rape victim on a college campus should not have to go to the college for prosecution at all. They go to the local authorities, period.
Speaking here as a mother as well as a feminist, I'm going to put on both hats at the same time. It's a hot look, guys. Everyone's going for it. We're all going to be looking like this soon, ladies. But as a mother and a feminist, if one of my children called me from a college campus and said, Mom, I was sexually assaulted last night, what do I do? I'd say, you go to the police, do not pass go, do not collect $200, I will meet you there. If somebody from the university tries to intervene and say, oh no, we can handle this internally, I might punch them in the head. Actually, I probably wouldn't. That's also illegal. I would, but my lawyer would punch them legally in the legal.
Actually, it hurts. It hurts more if you punch them in the legal briefs. Thank you.
my lawyer would punch them in the legal brief.
But Rebecca,
and the legal briefing.
You're absolutely right. If there is a criminal matter, it should be handled within the criminal system, unless all parties, for whatever reason, are willing to consciously consent to putting it in another system. But no, it should
no.
That is an issue of where they tell the local authorities we're going to handle. In a situation where they say, okay, we're just going to keep it within the college and not tell anybody in the local prosecutor's office or the local police, no, I'm not happy with that. I'm not happy with that at all.
This isn't extra legal. We wouldn't be saying this if it was one student stealing another student's computer and selling it on Craigslist and pocketing the funds. That's clearly criminal.
But even in the criminal system, people can drop the charges. People can work it out between themselves. Why is this different?
I see where the wires are crossed, and DJ, I actually do agree. It should go to the DA's office or the Commonwealth Attorney's office or whatever. Yeah, and then once it's there, okay, how do we proceed?
I mean, if the charges get dropped, the charges get dropped. That's part of the process.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So again, violent agreement on the more perfect union. Maybe that'll become, instead of real debate without the hate, maybe we'll just say the more perfect union, violent agreement.
I don't know. I think it demonstrates how similar we really are, despite our theoretically polar opposite ideologies.
Well, it's interesting how people with very different ideological bases to come from will occasionally come to the same conclusion, but as we've noted, for very different reasons and with very different underlying reasoning. It's fascinating, actually.
So I feel like the first 40 or so minutes of this show, we've been eating our vegetables and doing our homework so we could get to the fun part of the show, the part of the show that I've been waiting for this week, when we get to talk about Donald Trump Jr.'s Senate testimony about Russiagate. Everything to me was preamble.
It's like the red meat.
This is the red meat. Exactly.
Yeah, what did HelloFresh then? Little
this
whipped cream.
Is the cherry on my life. So Don Jr. went in front of a Senate investigative committee this week. I forget which committee it was. I'm sure you guys know. And he gave his version of what really happened with his meeting with a couple of Russians back in June or whenever it was. What do we know, DJ? And as somebody here said, it's the Donald Rumsfeld conundrum. What do we know that we don't know, and what don't we know that we should know, and what don't we want to know that we'll never stop knowing?
Okay, what Rumsfeld actually talked about were known knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns, which actually might have something to do with this, but I don't think so. Because there really wasn't anything new here. Though Trump Jr., or as I'm going to call him from now on, Skippy, essentially said the same thing he said maybe a few months ago at some point, which was he was hoping for dirt on the Clinton administration. He made it sound all nice and formal by saying, I was trying to determine her fitness for office, but it was mainly an opposition research meeting. He is sticking relatively to the same line he had after it became clear to him that the New York Times was going to spill the beans on the meeting, which was this was about getting dirt on Hillary Clinton. He now would like to make it sound all formal and highbrow by claiming he was concerned about her fitness for office. But the reality was he saw this as an opposition research meeting, and he is still trying to sell this as an opposition research meeting because he is dumb enough to think that voters won't be upset that you're willing to look to possible Russian government agents for opposition research. That in and of itself should, and I think does, alienate a majority of Americans, but Skippy is too dumb to realize that.
There's also the fact that it's illegal. You're not allowed to take anything of material value from foreign entities pertaining to a campaign, including opposition research, which has material value. So you can't take the meeting and get the information and still be within FEC regulations for running a presidential campaign. And Donald didn't know that. Skippy didn't know that. Nobody told Skippy that, including Paul Manafort and Steve Bannon and Satan and whoever else was in the room. I think Jimmy Hoffa was there, Bigfoot,
so
Elvis.
That's where he is.
I don't know. That's where he is. He's meeting with Russian agents, and you're not allowed to do it. It's not allowed. He should be facing at least fines by the FEC.
Well, yeah, I had to ask because it just struck me. So how would one report opposition information on an FEC disclosure document? I'm just curious.
I don't know. What's the hourly rate for an Oppo researcher?
Yeah, I've done opposition research for campaigns before.
Yes, but in Veno Veritas, Rebecca, because that's actually how Soviet agents operate. They disclose you.
Yeah, they disclosed. Yeah.
In Soviet Russia, agents disclose you.
Well, that seems to be what's happened, actually.
At what point do we call this collusion? I mean, where's the fine line? And at what point does Skippy say, "Oh, wait, look, it's behind me"? This is getting ridiculous.
Greg, we've been through this, and as I said before, the only court where an attempt at a foul that fails is not a foul is in professional basketball. This is not professional basketball, so attempted collusion is as bad as collusion.
Yes.
This 3 months ago.
You're also right. And those people who say, well, collusion is not a crime, don't understand that collusion to advance a criminal conspiracy is a crime.
It is a crime.
So, well, I want to build on that thought. Hold on, because I want to build on that thought. We're all, in a sense, falling for the Republican talking point on this, because we're calling this opposition research. It's not opposition research. It's spying. These people were delivering purloined information that a foreign government used spy techniques to get, and they were delivering it to damage an American politician. It was not opposition research. Yeah. It was spying, pure and simple, and no one will convince me otherwise. But you can try.
Yeah, I agree.
It's true. Kevin is right. Mark it.
It had to happen. It had to happen. Because I don't know whether you guys remember, there was a point early in the show where all four of you said, "Oh, my God, you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about." Which, nothing could be more fun than having that happen.
Yeah.
I just want to ask a hypothetical here,
and
though.
So,
I do want to ask a serious hypothetical here, though. Okay, it presumably wouldn't be spying if it had been the National Enquirer trailing a politician to bed with their...
Find him on a boat with his mistress?
Yes,
right.
That's
not spying. That's right.
All right.
But he asked them to do it. He literally did ask for it.
Yeah.
He
As
did.
a feminist, I can say that.
But I do want to ask, honestly, about a certain middle ground situation. What if it had been a Russia Today team trailing Gary Hart? Okay, it would have been Pravda at the time, I know, but context changing. What if it had been the agent?
But publishing it in the public record is different than holding a private meeting with a campaign staffer.
Right. And even if it was not, just broadcast on RTTV or whatever they call it. Cliff, I think you found like that one exception that you think disproves the rule, but it doesn't, because RTTV is both media, but it's Russian owned. Okay. But we're not there. That's not what happened. It's a great hypothetical, but this was the Russian government using known agents of the Russian government to try to damage one American political candidate so that that person would lose and the other candidate would win. That is spying.
I am a geek. Of course, I specialize in corner cases.
Yeah, and it's a great example. I applaud you for finding it. Yeah.
No, it is. It is. No, I agree. If they had run this through Russia Today, we may not be having this conversation, but they didn't. If you believe that the Russian lawyer, whose name I forget, and the other Russian folks in the room were working on behest of the Russian government, and frankly I do, then this is a much bigger deal than if it was something that came out because Russia Today put it on the web somewhere.
Because free press is different than sneaking.
So I have a question for you guys. And this, again, is a little cotton candy at the end of the show. We make fun of politicians, and especially the ones who are in the opposite party from us. But certainly there are fascinating people in both parties. I'm just wondering, Greg, is there a politician in the GOP or just another party other than the Democratic Party that you would love to sit down with and meet? I mean, who would you most like to meet? On the other side of the aisle.
Is that living or dead?
Let's make it living.
Because like Abraham Lincoln or Roosevelt. Everyone would say Abraham Lincoln, right? Without a doubt, and I've been talking about him a lot, Lindsey Graham. And I have this whole fan fiction thing written out where Lindsey Graham and I go out for barbecue and he's like, "Oh, Greg, come and here's my secret barbecue family recipe." And we have this great day and he tells me all these great stories about the South and he's just so witty and I bet he's so much fun to hang out with and we become besties. And I think he would be a blast to hang out with. And Al Franken's newest book tells me he's funny, and I think he's smart, but he would be the one person from the GOP that I would like to hang out with. And I bet he has all sorts of bitchy things to say about Trump and Cruz.
Rebecca, what do you think?
I would, if I was going to meet someone from the GOP and invite them over, maybe make them a HelloFresh meal, I think it would be Condoleezza Rice, because that woman, as a person of color, as a woman, sat down across from people who were going to hate her for every reason under the sun. People all around the world, some of the most powerful and most awful men in the world. And she held it together. She never complained. She just strikes me.
Even with Gaddafi.
Even with Gaddafi. Hell, even with what's his name? Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. And Gaddafi had that weird obsession with her. But she was the coolest, slickest customer. She's like just a stone cold bitch, and in the best way. And I would love to meet her and hear her stories.
And she's a fabulous piano player too.
And she speaks Russian, which is useful in this day and age.
DJ, who'd you like to meet?
This is hard for DJ because he doesn't know what party he's in, and he doesn't know which party's opposite him.
I do know which party that I'm in.
And we're going to make him choose a U.S. politician.
Well, yeah, that makes it much harder. If it had to be someone who is not a Democrat, Michael Bloomberg is not a Democrat, or at least he's not a Democrat yet, and I would probably say it would have to be Bloomberg.
Really?
Because yes, I do. Because he managed to take what Giuliani had built and make it better, smooth off the rough edges that Giuliani left behind. Because Lord knows Giuliani left behind a whole bunch of rough edges. He managed to smooth the rough edges. He managed to govern He managed to govern New York City very well, and his is a voice I think we need to hear a lot more of, particularly now. So I would say it would probably be Bloomberg. I'd be curious to hear his insights on the situation in the country today, and to get some advice from him about where to go from here.
Cliff?
Joe Biden.
Oh, yes!
I think he'd be a lot of fun to talk with.
Obviously.
You think?
What would you ask him?
I'm not sure, but it would probably be something to try and get him to make one of his. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it doesn't matter what question you ask him; he will then divert to every other subject you ever want to discuss anyway.
He'd probably take you out in the Trans
He'll talk
Am.
about Scranton.
I bet.
And bonus points if I could somehow drag Prince Philip into this as well. They'd probably get into a gaff feedback loop, and it would be awesome.
I'd like to see the three of you in Vegas. I think that would be great.
That would be awesome.
I would like to see the three of you in Vegas on that giant roller coaster on the top.
Oh my god.
I'd make a move.
So what about you,
Yeah,
Kevin?
what about you?
What Republican do you want to break bread with?
Well, I racked my brain on this, and the only one that I could come up with is Sarah Palin.
Ooh.
I'd really like to sit down with Sarah Palin for a couple of reasons. I racked my brain and came up with a rack. But
And Kevin wonders why he's alone.
Yes. I love that joke too. But here's the thing. There's obviously a lot of really talented, smart, interesting Republicans and independents and Green Party people that it would be fun to sit down with. But as I thought about it, I thought I would really like to find out whether Sarah Palin has more substance than what we've all seen on television. I would like to find out. Sometimes we see these people and we go, how did she get to be a governor? How did that person get to be a vice presidential candidate? People say that person is so much smarter when you sit down with them in private. Or in the case of George Bush, they said that about him too. They also said much funnier, much more personable. You hear that a lot about politicians. And I would like to find out what the real Sarah Palin is like. I don't think I'd enjoy her, but I would like an opportunity to find out.
That's awesome.
So there you go.
That's awesome.
And I'd love to report back on what I found out. So thanks for listening, everybody. Please follow us on Twitter at MPU Podcast and on Facebook at facebook.com/More Perfect Union Podcast, and share our link on your Facebook timeline so your friends can discover us as well. We want to thank our new sponsor, HelloFresh, and remind everybody to go to HelloFresh.com and use promo code MorePerfect30 to get $30 off your first order. Do that today. And if you like talking politics and would like to join our political debates between shows, join us in our Facebook group. It's our sister group, Open Fire Politics. We're all there, and we'd love to see you there, too. Everybody, what do you guys have for the rest of the night? What are your plans?
I'm actually going to go to bed, but I think I might go try to save the universe on my PS4.